Well, did you look at that? People are already signing up. You know, we're streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Wow, really?
Yeah, we really are. It's so much more than when we started. We also get it right more often now.
We get what now?
We get it right more often now.
Right. Yeah. You're being very generous. I get it right. I had a little bit of a rough patch.
Let's not pretend that we haven't had that moment where it looked like I was being abducted by aliens for some reason.
Was that the time I made it look like that on purpose, or was
No,
it?
it was just for some reason I was turning all red or blue or something.
Oh, right. Yeah. But we've surmounted for the most part, our technical issues, and look at people come in. They're so excited about Blue Rose content. Brian F. Irving says, a good evening, a good ThursdAGE unto you, my friend. As you're popping in, do feel free to say howdy do, and also don't forget, we need you to subscribe to, wherever you're at, just subscribe to it. And whether it's a thumb or a star or a dollar bill or whatever, just slide it in, just put it right there in our little pocket, money pocket.
Dollars are always popular.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
I know. I really had to edit myself. I was gonna be a little too saucy, and that's not what this is about today. It's about Blue Rose here on ThursdAGE. Zach asks a good question. Everyone having a good evening?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. Thank you.
Yeah. So far, so good, Zach. Thank you. Alex knows me. I am a fancy lad who likes pockets for money. I was born with mine, interestingly, and never mind. Not even gonna. Oh, dirty phone pocket. Yeah. Yuck. Yeah, these days I don't even want to look at a phone. So much germ action going on. Alex, it's different. Alex is actually a star of another program that we do every Monday. It's called Mutants and Masterminds Monday, and I do believe he's come to give us the business. But
we like to call it support.
Yes, we do. Stan will be with you in just a moment. Please remain holding.
High synth distraction music.
Yeah. You know who's really been honestly, probably picketing. I'm telling you, just marching around with a little sign saying "Blue Rose" is this guy, Jonesy.
It's because Jonesy is the best.
He is the best, absolutely the best. Founder of the Joseph D. Carriker Jr. fan club.
I don't know about all that.
where the D stands for delightful. Oh, great. Now I'm nervous.
Security.
I'm nervous. We have a celebrity in our midst. Meredith Gerber's here.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Hi, Meredith.
I'm going to tell you, I'm the founder of the Meredith Gerber fan club, and I had to kill a couple people who started it before me.
True. I'm actually one of them that you killed.
See? So, yes, yeah. That's right.
Meredith is also objectively the best. Literally today, I sent her an email telling her she was the best.
That's so funny. I do the same thing. I just I'll wake up. I'm like, I'm going to send Meredith a note just saying, Meredith, you're pretty awesome. What do you say, friends? Shall we get the party started?
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, let's take all these poor people off hold. And let's do this. Ta-da! We are here with Owen KC Stephens and Joseph D. Carriker Jr., and we're talking about Blue Rose. And I got to tell you, looking at the art for Blue Rose, and I'm being distracted by the art behind you. Look at the clouds and the water.
I know.
Don't pay attention to that hitch in the graphics there. That's just a little twist in the matrix. But oh, Meredith, jeez Louise. But that yes, it is. That is a lot of blue. It is a lot of blue. Did you two coordinate your outfits today?
Did
Not even a little. No.
Wow. See how we are? I'm not wearing anything because I'm disembodied Troy. And I got to tell you, looking at the artwork, the aesthetic for Blue Rose it's like looking at a Xanax. Just kind of sends you to a nice calm place. It's it invites you to come hang out and to be a part of it. And I adore it. And I know that there's a lot of yes, my smoke cloud is blue today. It is indeed. So here's what we're doing today. You know, we had a friend whose username is something temporary, something something, but we'll call him Temp or Tempo. This fan of Blue Rose just was posted on our YouTube channel and said, nobody's going to talk about Blue Rose. What about Blue Rose? Why does everybody hate it? No, didn't say that, but was really just, it seemed mournful. I felt the sadness. And so I said, well, what would you want to talk about? And boy, did they have a list. Their list was, there's a lot there and a lot of good stuff. And so I talked to Joe, and Joe was like, of course, because Joe's great.
Thanks
and
for
so
the love.
thanks for coming in and hanging out with us and everybody and people in chat. If you've got questions or things pop up or you want to know something particular, we're just talking about all the good stuff. Lore, we're talking about, excuse me, development as I choke to death on my own mist. We're also talking about like some of the process and things behind the scenes, and all that good stuff. But Joe, when you are talking to people about Blue Rose, what do you find they're most curious about?
Well, probably the number one question is, how is Blue Rose different from, a lot of the other sort of fantasy role playing that's out there, right? Like, what about it made it necessary that we created this whole other game? And so Blue Rose was originally created by a fantastic cabal of folks, notably Steve Kenson and Jeremy Crawford, and a handful of other simply amazing people. And basically, it was inspired by the romantic fantasy genre of fantasy fiction, which sort of differs from a lot of the Tolkienian or the pulpier material in a couple of ways, right? So one of the ways that it sort of one of the core ways that it differs is that relationships take a forward measure of importance. And it's very easy to read that as romantic relationships, but it's not limited to that sort to just romance as we think of it. But friendships and familial connections and mentor apprenticeship, and the problems that romantic fantasy heroes face, a lot of times are as often solved by who they know, who they have created bonds with, who they've built community with, as it is by any skill with sword or spell or that sort of thing. I'll probably be referring a couple of times to the Blue Rose page, and so that is you can find that at blueroserpg.com. And on that page, there is actually an essay that I put together with some help from Steve and a variety of other folks that kind of highlights what the big differences are. And these differences kind of form the core of our design philosophy when it comes to building this world and creating this game. And actually, one of those things I wanted to note was in the chat, Philip notes that the art is just really beautiful, and it is, right. Like, one of the things in romantic fantasy is that beauty is as important to the world. The things that are beautiful in the world are not just, they're not just setting the scene. They are some The beauty of the world is some of the things that our heroes fight for. These are some of the things that they're seeking to preserve. And so the art, establishing art that communicated the beauty of the world in this way, was super important to the design of Blue Rose, and continues to inform it to this day.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize that, but that makes a ton of sense, and it really is one of the things that just grabs you. It is inspiration at the jump.
Yeah, our books very much have, because in a lot of fantasy gaming books, you go through and there are, like, scenes of, like, super powerful magic at work, or strange other planar wonders, or terrifying scenes full of monsters, and this sort of thing. But one of the things that we want to do, that we make a point of doing, uh, as part of our Blue Rose development, is to make sure that there is art that describes the beauty in the world, and that describes the places that people live, right? The homes that characters come from, because these are very much this is what they're fighting for. This is what they're seeking to protect.
You could be forgiven in a lot of RPGs for looking at the art and thinking, oh, I'm supposed to create someone who goes from place to place with no connection to any location, kills stuff, and takes their money.
Right? Yeah.
The murder hobo. And
Right.
in no way am I saying that is a good way or a bad way to play those games, right? That art is in those games for a reason. But that's the entire point why the visual aesthetic of Blue Rose, which is very much not about going from place to place and just killing things and taking their stuff. That's not the
Yes,
point at
very much
all.
so.
It is much more about family of choice and community, and putting yourself on the line, not necessarily for a greater good, but for things that are important to you.
Yeah, yeah. For,
So that,
for things that are worth sacrificing for.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a mindfulness as well that is, I think, really, it just sort of, Joe, the first time I played, you ran the game for us, and there's a few people that joined us, and even brought one of my friends from, another kind of adjacent world of politics, and we played and we had a blast. But again, that's sort of, I don't know, is it serenity? I mean, there's just kind of a a vibe that just resonates from every aspect, and especially from you. I mean, like, you as the GM. I mean, that is just like, it was just a true pleasure, and just a real. Again, lacking the words, because I know word good, but I do know when something feels different, and this, Blue Rose, just from top to bottom, the whole entire experience. Like, I started flipping through the book last night, just to kind of bone up on some things, and I'll tell you, I was up until 2 in the morning. I thought, I was like, I gotta go to I just forgot what I was doing, because I got looped in, and boy, that's kind of what you want, right?
Yeah, even as someone who's helped to make some of those books, it's really easy to get lost in some of them.
John says something really great. Fantasy storytelling as opposed to fantasy adventure. Okay,
Yeah,
I
definitely,
like that. And
definitely.
and this is, I'm not sure how you'd pronounce this, but we'll call him my cousin, and because he is. And so every action would have a butterfly effect on the world. Well, let's talk about that. What is that relationship to the world, and how does it change?
Yeah. So, I mean, taking it at its most literal, at its most sort of literal idea, one of the traits of romantic fantasy is that the natural world is probably the first and foremost source of beauty in the setting, and that rather than it necessarily being, it certainly has its nature red and tooth and claw moments, but the forests, if they're terrifying to go through, it's usually because there's something wrong with them rather than it's just they're terrifying and scary because they're old woods, right? And so that kind of notion of the elemental of the sort of the environment being important is central to romantic fantasy, and then taking that a step further and saying, well, the player characters, and all of the characters really, we focus on the player characters in a game of Blue Rose, the impact that they have on the world. They go out and do these amazing things. They potentially sacrifice themselves in a variety of ways because they're fighting these fights that are worth fighting, and they rescue people, and they stop awful people, but it doesn't end there. you know like the people that you have rescued, they're still there when you come back to that place, and they remember you. They laud you, right? You changed their life in a lot of ways, and they want to. And so Blue Rose isn't just about the the moment where you rescue the villagers and then sort of send them back off to the village, and then that's it. It's also about the moments that come after, where maybe you inspired some of them to acts of bravery that they may not have undertaken if not for your example, or they are the first ones to show you new members of their families when you come back there, because literally they wouldn't have had that opportunity if you hadn't done what you had done. And so the way that heroes contribute to the world isn't just, okay, go do this, collect your XP, and now we're moving on. It's also like, what is the impact, right? What is the impact that these people who are doing amazing things have on the world? And sometimes that's good, like in the examples I was just using, but sometimes it's bad, right? Because great people can sort of inspire jealousy, or they can inspire envy, or people mistake what they're doing or why they do it. And so these are all the kind of stories. And again, this goes back to romantic fantasy stories are about the interactions between people and the way that those things develop.
One of the we've got to touch on this, and I think that people, when they hear about this aspect of Blue Rose, it immediately sends them into a kind of like a thought of like, what would they choose, or how would they connect? And we're talking
Yeah.
about the it's rhydan, right? Am I saying
Oh,
that right?
right. Yes. Mhm.
Yes, yeah. So share that bit of it, because I think that for people who are catching the drift here, this is going to
Totally.
really put a punctuation
Uh,
mark. Yeah.
so there's a variety of sort of heritages that Blue Rose heroes can belong to, can come from. But one of the kind of really fun elements of the setting are the rhydan. And the rhydan are they are basically animals who, at some point in their kind of adolescence, early adulthood, sometimes even younger, awakened to not only full sapience but also to psychic ability. Rhydan are psychic animals who have the ability to communicate with one another and with any thinking entity. And in some places, they're regarded as terrifying tricksters, or sorcerous entities that are coming to teach your kids how to listen to heavy metal or whatever.
Right.
But in our kind of central kingdom, the kingdom of the Blue Rose, Aldis, in Aldis, Rhydan are folk. They are people. They are given the full rights that any other thinking, sapient, free-willed individual has within the setting. And they're just as likely to become to be exceptional and choose acts of bravery and heroism, um, in day-to-day life. One of the things with and so romantic fantasy as a fiction genre sort of got started with, like, you'll probably recognize some of the names, right? Like Tamara Pierce and Mercedes Lackey, and Diane Duane, and a variety, and a variety of these folk, and the whole, like, animals that have psychic abilities within the setting, has kind of always been a part of this genre of fiction, and so we kind of wanted to make sure that we sort of included that because it sounded like a kind of fun gaming element that you didn't often get to play with. I mean, occasionally you'd have, like, you're a magic user who's got a familiar and they hang out with the party or something. But in this, one of the actual contributing members of the party is one of these animals. And they can often form what is called the rybond, and that's RHY or RHY dash bond, which is when they just sort of spontaneously find that they have a strong psychic connection with another person who is not rhydan. And within the context of the setting, the rybond is considered as important and valuable a relationship as, a familial bond or a marriage or any of these other types of relationships. It is not those types of relationships. It is its own. Um, and so part of the fun of playing Raiden is frequently having someone in the party who you have this Rybond with, and, like, figuring out what the closeness between the characters are, right? Like, what are their in jokes? What are their, this sort of thing. Again, it's that building relationships between characters. Um, Primarily because who we interact with and how we interact with those people says something about us. And character building by asking questions like, who are my friends? Who do I find myself drawn to? Who can I not stand? These say things about your characters. And so we're very much about asking and answering those sorts of questions.
I love that. I do love too the distinction of, you bring up marriage or familial bond, but it is because this is a relationship that exists in a different space, a different kind, a very important but very different. So it's a funny. Noob Nation says, so furries with powers. Well, it's
Well,
So
they're not
I mean,
anthropomorphic, though. They're
that's right.
animals. They
I,
retain their animal forms.
I played in a Blue Rose game that Nicole Lynchus ran at OrcaCon a few years ago, and two of the characters, mine and one other, were Rycats. And they're cats, right? They're maybe a little bigger than a typical cat, but they're not walking around people that happen to have cat ears. They're cats. And we played each of them based on our experience with some of our cats. And the entire group of other people sort of had to roll their eyes and realize that not only did these two Rycats think they were in charge, but in fact they were sort of in charge. And you can imagine how annoying an adventuring party where you have a cat who knows, oh, this person might get upset and go berserk, so I'm going to headbutt them and make them carry me so their hands are full. Like, they can't start a fight because I have gone, carry me, carry me, carry me, until they give up. And then I purr, and they're like, well, I want to start a fight now. I'm ticked off, but
I've got this.
big cat.
I love that. Even the tactics shift. It's not like it is a de-escalation. It's I really like that a lot. There is a lot of, one of the things that I love as well is that we've got a lot of fiction that supports kind of what's going on in the world and tells we got a few things coming and going from the mount, of the mount to the mountain around the mount. But one of the stories talks about the rybond and kind of that, the nature of it. And what is the title of that?
There's several of them. There's several of them. The novel that I wrote, Shadow Tide, actually has a brand new rybonding occur during the narrative.
Gotcha.
I
think that's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. So it can be kind of fun to get to see it at its very beginning and kind of what that looks like, how it impacts not just the two who are rybonded, but the people around them.
I love it. Go ahead.
It's a kind of interesting what these games can make you think of. Both Tamara Pierce and Mercedes Lackey were very formative in my reading for what I thought of as fantasy and interesting stuff. But most of the concepts that they had did not make it into, for example, my 13-year-old D&D games, which were much more about three-bladed swords and the glaive and the lochnar and stuff that glows and goes boom and kills people, because the rules handled that well. But one of my early real passions as a reader were what I think of as the B-plot books of the Dragon Riders of Kern series. Not the main books, which I love, I read them, but specifically Dragon Drums and Dragon Song and Dragon Singer and how they tie into the White Dragon, which are much more books specifically about the relationship between people and these psychic critters, be they the small fireworms or the White Dragon. And those are stories that I would have no game support to tell those stories in a lot of systems. But there is game support. There's a way to measure it and see how it's impacting things in Blue Rose. And that is what makes Blue Rose, for example, fairly different from Fantasy Age, even though they're both using the adventure game engine. They're both age system games, and you can, without too much effort. I mean, I'm a game designer, so I'm aware that I am perhaps doing this more than other people, but you can port stuff back and forth. But if you play a Fantasy Age game straight and a Blue Rose game straight, in my experience, you will get two very different experiences because of those important, if perhaps subtle, differences in what are the ancestors or heritages available, how are relationships handled, what are the rules focus on as a thing that you expect to play.
Right.
Our good friend, we'll call him WDG. I refuse to butcher such a beautiful name, and I know that I would. But talks about still remember fondly playing a weasel familiar of an arrogant elf wizard some 20 years ago, with me being more liked by the party than my wizard. See, that's hilarious. But I also bring this up because it is like 20. How old is Blue Rose right now? 21, 2? 20.
Not quite.
No,
it's more than 10 years. Like when we launched the Kickstarter, a handful
more than 15, I think.
We're coming up on 20. Yeah, we're coming up on 20. I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah. And you can be forgiven, friend. We were just talking about what happened during the pandemic, and it could have been 3 decades for all we know.
Right. Blue Rose, the original Blue Rose, won the silver medal for best rules at the Ennies in 2005.
Okay.
2005. Okay. Yeah. Wild.
Yeah, absolutely wild. And it go
Troy,
ahead.
As often happens when we have Stan on, he's done art that has shared with us.
Oh, Stan, for those who are tuning in for the first time, Stan is he's just a decent human being, an incredible
and very talented.
Yes.
And is so kind to offer his doodling skills. I love this.
I will say, I can tell the split second when Troy was actually looking at the piece of art. So that's when you look at it.
Because I kind of fade away a little bit. I'm gonna let me get this and make it available so that we can take a look. But okay, so so we talked a bit about sort of kind of the fundamentals, and people have kind of catching the vibe a bit, but
Right.
there is a whole world here. There's races that I have to ask, and this is it's silly that I don't really know the answer to this, but in a world where there is such commitment to beauty and to honoring the beauty of relationships and to heroism and mutual sort of respect and bonding and all of that, is there an opposite to all of that love and
Yeah,
goodness?
there definitely are. Kind of on the macro level, there are places where things are not as wholesome, let us say. Um, but actually, pulling back a little further than that, Blue Rose, its cosmology includes something called shadow, and that's with a capital S. And shadow is a supernaturally corrupting force. That is, like it's not just simple moral mortal evil. It transcends that. One of the ways that I like to describe to my players is to think of it as like dangerous levels of radiation in the world. Like there are places, there are things, there are people that have accidentally touched shadow, and it has infected them. And those people can then go into the world and likewise continue to spread that to other people. Now, shadow does feed on and strengthen itself on the worst parts of human nature. The parts where we're greedy, where we're insecure, where we're rageful. All of these parts of us, they don't necessarily automatically mean like somebody who is, you know, given to huge fits of rage. They aren't necessarily by default aligned with shadow, but what they are is vulnerable to it. Because if they do encounter some source of shadow, it will easily find its way into them by using those weaknesses. And so the world has places that are shadow tainted. One of these places is a very large marsh that is right next door. That is right next door to the kingdom of Aldis, a place called the Varen Marsh. And it was a place that was a form of magic. So magic, we don't actually ever use the term magic in Blue Rose. We use the term arcana, because magic isn't sort of mysterious and unknown, and nobody knows what's going on. The people of this world have made a concentrated effort at studying and codifying a lot of these powers, and so we use the term arcana to describe it. There is a type of arcana that taps into shadow itself. And it's actually one of the most common ways that shadow finds its way into the world, in sort of, rather than being tainted from some other source. That it's one of the best ways that it finds its way into the world is through sorcerers who tap into shadow to add power, to their abilities, and are thus sort of tainted by it. And so the Varen Marsh, next door to the Kingdom of the Blue Rose, is a place where a massive magical cataclysm, a number of centuries ago, occurred and sort of shattered this land. And there were a number of rivers that ran through it, and the land was devastated, so that all of these rivers kind of lost their boundaries, and turned the place into this stinking kind of shadow tainted marsh, with all sorts of monsters and things like that. To the north of Aldis is the nation of Kern. And the nation of Kern was, until recently, ruled by a Lich King, who was probably one of the most powerful sorcerers yet in existence, and who like ruled this kind of tyrannical magocracy, where people, his citizenry were resources, and anyone who had any magical, any talent for arcana, quickly found their way into his service or were destroyed. And his kind of greed and desire um, to hold in tyranny free peoples, made him an enemy of the freedom loving people of Aldis. Um, and then on the other side of the Varen Marsh is a nation called Jarzon. Now, Jarzon is not aligned with Shadow. In fact, they are so opposed to Shadow that they have taken the sort of relative laissez-faire view that Aldis has of Arcana and decided that that's too dangerous. If everybody can run around and practice whatever Arcana they want, that means that they can also find their way to sorcery, and that's not good for anyone. So they very much they are a theocracy that seeks to strongly latch down on any uses of arcana. They're actually one of the places I mentioned earlier that there are some places where rhydan are considered to be dangerous. They might tempt you into magic and all other sort of shenanigans. Jarzon is the place where that's believed. It's actually dangerous to be one of the rhydan in Jarzon. And then to the northwest of Aldis are the horse plains of Rizia, where that is roamed by a number of clans of horse nomads, and the clans are not at the core of the clans, the heart of the clans are not actually the two-legged people who make up the clans, but the four-legged rye horses. So their sort of herds form the basis, and they allow two-legged folk to kind of run with them. And so they have this whole nomadic culture, and they do some trading and that sort of thing. And have their own deep culture and a tradition of witches and this sort of thing, but also narrowing the focus kind of back down to just Aldis. Even if you never leave the boundaries of the Kingdom of the Blue Rose, people are still people, right? Like, even if your society is in theory ideal, and Aldis is not that, although they certainly do try hard. There are still going to be people who have experienced trauma, and don't have the best ways of interacting with the world. There are people who are just give in to their pettier, less sociable instincts, who just want nothing to do with other people or who are jealous of them. So all of the normal variety of human failings and weaknesses and things that make people dangerous to one another are all there. They're all present in Aldis, at every level of society. But the society of Aldis is such that its previous monarchs have really gone out of their way to try and codify fairness and understanding and compassion. Into its kind of day-to-day operations.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead,
Sorry,
Joe.
yeah, I just wanted to touch the monarch of Aldis. It's not There is no hereditary nobility in the nation of Aldis. There is a noble class, but you're not born into it. You have to study and take a variety of tests. They're basically civil servants on some level. And the monarch, when one monarch dies, the next monarch is chosen by a strange spiritual entity that appears called the Golden Heart, and goes wandering through the kingdom until it finds the ideal person the most ideal person in that kingdom to serve as the next monarch. Now, mind you, this isn't a guarantee that this person is always going to be perfect, because power corrupts, and also the responsibilities of power can break people. But at that exact moment, when the next monarch is chosen, it's the golden heart chooses the ideal person for whatever is coming up. And so of course that can cause some sort of clashes within society, as you have some established power structures who think that they should have been chosen, or want to know who this yokel from the countryside is who thinks that they're going to give everybody orders now, and that sort of thing.
So while a world striving for perfection and being good people, there are still the same kinds of activities and folks that that you may run into in your real life.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Aldea is the planet. Is the
is the nation, the part of the world that we can see here.
I gotcha.
Yeah. We haven't extended much beyond those boundaries, although there are a couple of island nations to the south west, and the like. But those nations altogether are Aldea.
Gotcha. I gotcha. And folks, I hate to break it to you, but Joe has planned everything out. He's got all the ideas. He knows it all. He just refuses to tell you. He just won't do it. He just refuses. So,
it's sort of like saying a region is Europe, right?
Yeah.
Right. Or
and I'm joking, Joe. I have no doubt that in there lies some information and thoughts and sort of, rough sketches and all that good stuff. But I was just giving you the business, Joe. But yeah, I mean, I love that. And thank you for going over the map. And I'm so glad that I had it handy so we could show some folks. I do want to remind people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it's so great. It's just just everything about this entire RPG is just gorgeous. I love it. And but I want to remind folks, if you're listening to this on demand, you definitely want to check out the chat, because we have Jonesy, Stephen Jones is in the chat. He's being our link wizard today, and he's dropping a bunch of great links, not only to things that we provide that you can buy, but things that you can get for free. There's plenty of Blue Rose stuff, from pre-gens to adventures to there's the quick start, a lot of really great stuff that all you need. I mean, I think with the quick start, you just need the quick start and some dice.
Yeah. In fact, like the other Age games, this only uses a set of 6-siders. So. Yeah,
absolutely. And so, in addition to being sort of a simplified, more story-rich sort of opportunity, you can just grab something for free and give it a whirl. Joe, real quick, when you think about the perfect ages for this, knowing that the age can scale depending upon the appropriateness of the people around the table, but generally speaking, you crack open the book. What's the recommended age?
I would probably say it's the same age as for reading romantic fantasy. So probably adolescence on.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha. That's great. All right. So there were some questions. So you talked a bit about why magic is corrupting, and you talked a bit about that. Are there other aspects about sort of that darkness, the shadow that you think is important to elaborate on?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are places that are infected by shadow. There are like artifacts. There can be items that have this sort of thing, and there are entities that come from shadow that in fact sorcerers can summon. They're referred to as dark fiends. They're kind of the closest thing that our setting has to infernal entities, and they range all the way from huge, terrifying, hulking, wrathful monsters who want nothing more than to destroy everything that is beautiful, to, you know, seductive, slick entities that whisper at the back of your mind and, you know, find what your sort of vices and your weaknesses are and leverage them against you and against the people you love.
Interesting. All right. Let me. Oh, you know what I need to do before I forget? Because Joe, I get wrapped up in this stuff and I listen. I have all these questions. I just want more and more and more. And then I realize we're 5 minutes past the time. And so I end up having to scramble to share things like this.
While Troy works that out, I will note that this is a great example of what happens if you tell us what you want on your show. Now, this is art by Stan. It is a lovely piece of a couple of handsome-looking, intelligent, I'm sure,
That
folks
is
in blue,
the best.
holding a great big blue rose. So I almost certainly want to get myself a T-shirt of that, so I can wear a T-shirt
Yes.
of me and Joe in T-shirts, and then
It's
someday
so
maybe
good.
Oh, that's fantastic. Stan, you're a wizard.
I
You're a
really,
wizard,
he
Stan.
absolutely is a wizard. We're one of our faves for sure. But yeah, very nice, very very nice indeed. So what I wanted to ask, oh, I know what I wanted to ask. So when it comes to, we have various books that we have the, I've got it on my lap right now, and it's massive. The Aldous book. What is that a source book? Is it tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Aldous, City of the Blue Rose, is a city book for the kind of capital of the kingdom of Aldous. It's, you know, where a lot of it's where the monarch's, you know, palace is at. It's where a lot of the sort of organizations within the setting are. A lot of the player characters in Blue Rose games are not by default, but, you know, it's an easy in terms of building the campaign. There's an organization called the Sovereign's Finest, and the Sovereign's Finest is basically, they are agents of the monarch. They are spies and they are ambassadors and they are rangers, and they're basically adventurers who adventure on behalf of the kingdom. Um, and who, you know, they know that they're going to be out doing that sort of thing. They have these sorts of talents.
Oops.
And so the monarch has basically set it up so that, you know, people who have that inclination, who have those skills, have a way of not just using them on behalf of of society, but can be lauded and rewarded for doing so. And so, you know, so the big collegium where the Sovereign's Finest are taught and inducted is there in that city. I'm a big uh urban fantasy urban setting nerd. You know, as an old school D&D player, I love me some Waterdeep. You know, I just all of those, right? And so honestly, all this City of the Blue Rose was kind of my self-indulgent love letter to that sort of thing. And it's literally just front to back what you find in this city. And You know, what you find in the city, and not just in terms of like people, but also what places are like and what day-to-day life is like, because that's kind of interesting. I find that sort of thing interesting in there. And it's also got a great adventure by Steve Kenson in there, and a cool method for generating NPCs on the fly using tarot cards.
Okay, yeah.
So
A couple
kind of
people have talked about tarot cards and have shared,
Yes.
you know, that plays, and we've kind of talked about, you know, sort of the we've used the language of tarot as we're talking about this stuff. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
as part of character creation, you actually choose one of the major arcana to represent kind of your character's overall destiny. Like, this is what they strive to do in the world. And you can decide whether it's this is what the character has decided they're doing, or maybe it's this is what they're kind of led to regardless of what they think. And then you also choose from the minor arcana 2 cards that represent kind of your vice and your virtue. And so there is in the setting, sort of a tarot deck exists that's called the Royal Road, and it's kind of folded into the background of the setting and that sort of thing. So I like to, and I'm kind of a tarot nerd as well. Uh,
Yeah, so we're looking here at the. I mean, this is just it really is breathtaking. I mean, it's gorgeous. And now, so we're looking at two of these beautiful buildings on top of hills. Joe, how much time have you spent staring at this, sort of thinking of the different houses and structures
that
and
are well. See, so I'm also a cartography nerd, and I love to make maps. So I'm actually a little embarrassed to answer that question. Suffice to say, it's a lot.
Yeah, I'd imagine as much. I'd imagine as much. That is definitely a theme that runs throughout tabletop role play game developers.
Yeah.
You folks love a map. You love a map. So, what
That's
are these?
A
Go ahead.
map is such a great interface. You know, people say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. I can tell you about a city all I want, but if I can hand to the players a map, then we have this common point of reference that is as real in our interaction with it as a map in the real world is, right? The map is
Yeah.
never the place. It's the picture is not the territory, but people are used to looking at maps and interacting with maps, and it is a great way to say, here is this place, and allow people to get a picture of it in their head so much more strongly than any amount of description. Or for me, I mean, this is a gorgeous picture, and I love showing people that. But most players won't stare at this and think, okay, so that's a 4-story building and that's a 2-story building. But if you give them a map, most players I know will stare at that map and be like, okay, so this is this district and this sort of thing is here.
Yep.
And
Now, is this the same? Am I looking at the same?
That's the city map.
Yeah,
That's the map
yeah.
of the city of Aldea.
I love that. And so, based on our perspective, are we kind of looking at the city through atop Lake Vash and into kind of that little, like how in this?
So the
yeah.
camera. So on the image that you had, the camera is sitting out in Lake Vash. Yeah.
Yeah, great, gotcha.
like on the H of Lake Vash.
Okay,
about,
that's
yeah.
that's what it felt like. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's great. It's yeah, I mean, just utterly breathtaking.
In terms of gaming and like immersion, one of the things that I like about handing players a map is that as they sort of gather around and start looking at various parts of the map, they're literally exploring this place in a way that's very similar to the way their characters would if they either were walking through the through the physical place, or you were looking at a map themselves. And so it's really cool in the way it kind of immediately immerses players in what the place is, to say nothing of what maps say about what you find on a map says about the place.
In the chat, Stan makes the comment, a map of Aldous is no less real than a map of Tokyo or Paris or any other city you've never been to.
Yes.
And looking at one lets you plan your trip and dream about what streets you'd walk down. And that's exactly what I was trying to say, that Stan says better, that there's this really familiar way of interacting with a map.
Yeah, the other thing I think about too is, one of the, I do love Google Maps because it is a way to kind of, the 3D kind of step into a space in another country on a street or a trail and stuff. But I sure would love to see this world mapped out in a Google Maps kind of way. Like just to, yeah, that would be really, really, I would get lost for sure. I would spend some quality time, checking the city out. And so looking at the map from this vantage point, so we have the two buildings that were kind of atop the tall, sitting on top of the, sort of these hills. And then you have these sort of green, what's going on there? Sort of these, is that just aesthetics, or is there something kind of
Sorry, I'm having a hard time spotting where you're referring to.
right? And I'm just sort of, can't you see what I'm seeing, Joe? Read my mind. Yeah, let me get. Let me pop it open here, and I will. Oh, so little parks, maybe.
Yeah, parks and just greenery within the city. One of the things in Aldous is that culturally, it's kind of a gardening culture.
Ah,
The roads are lined with, if you have a house in the city, all of the roads are lined with basically plant beds that are slightly elevated to keep them up off of foot level. And if you have a building there, whether it's a business or your home or whatever, you are allowed to take advantage of that space out front and kind of turn it into your own. And so Alden folk are a little competitive about the green spaces that they build, because again, it's that cultural celebration of beauty, both person made and natural.
Well, and it's the Blue Rose equivalent of people trying to do the best holidays display, right?
Right? Yeah,
Part of how you show people how great you and your space are is how well you do with this opportunity that you have been given.
I like it. So it's sort of like a big community garden, but it's just the whole community.
exactly.
I love it. I love it. Um, yeah. So here's the bummer. It is 2:57, which
Wow.
means I know, right? We could spend a lot of time just talking, and also, Joe, you're a delight to be able to sit down and just sort of have you walk us through. You have such a gravitas about the way that you explain this that you go to there, and I just really
Thank
value that.
you.
It's wonderful to have you on,
I
and I think that
appreciate that.
yeah, we're gonna have you back, and
Oh yeah,
maybe have you pop in a little more regularly. I gotta tell you, Joe,
I'd love that. I'd
the
love that.
pressure. Everybody wants more Blue Rose. They just want more Joe. It's just it's a nonstop ask. And while
Well,
we like to kind of mete out our Joes and our Owens in sort of responsible ways, we don't waste the flavor. Um, I would love to hear from folks about kind of other things that they'd like to get sort of information on, and
yeah,
sort of and then go from there.
yeah, I would love that. That would be a lot of fun.
Now, Joe, where can people find you online? Are you doing, everybody's got a side hustle. Everybody's got a thing that they're doing. I'm telling you, everybody's got a Patreon. It is,
Yeah.
it,
So I do have, in addition to my game design stuff, I'm also a novelist. And I've written a Blue Rose novel, as I mentioned earlier, and I've also done um, a uh, a novel called Sacred Band, which is about a team of LGBTQ plus superheroes. And so I do run a Patreon that is a source for kind of short stories and world building and things like that in kind of the setting of Sacred Band. You can find me on Twitter at Oakthorn, OAKTHORNE. And I can also be found at josephcarriker.com.
nice. And then the URL for the Patreon, patreon.com/Oakthorn.
Slash Oakthorn, OAKTHORNE. Yep,
Nice, nice. And so I'm imagining that if folks dig around on your website, that they'll get some links and be able to kind of check out some other stuff as well.
absolutely.
Fantastic. Wow, Owen, we put a great show together. All this hard work we did, all this heavy lifting we did. When in actuality, all we had to do is just sort of ask you to come join us, open the door, and then you just sort of you filled it with your Jonas, and I like it, and I like it a lot.
Well, I
Hey,
appreciate y'all hosting and guiding the
yeah,
conversation.
we warmed them up for you for a year.
For a
Um,
year, we did, we
how
did.
do we do on answering the list of questions we had?
Really good. I mean, it's so
Yeah,
funny, and you're right in sync when the conversation just naturally answers the questions without needing to kind of so really covered them all, and
Awesome,
in great depth. So absolutely, I'm imagining also then inspiring quite a few more, and so buckle up for that, Joe.
awesome. I
But I
look
want to
forward to
thank
it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that's one of the things I love about the whole Green Ronin crew, and I'm sure this is the same elsewhere, but you know, this is a hobby that has spawned people who love to create for the hobby, and they do it because they're creating the things they want to be around and to play. And so that's a pretty nice tension there, and we all get a benefit in the process. I want to thank everybody who's been watching. A reminder that you want to subscribe to our YouTube. When you do that, something amazing happens. I don't know what it is. I can't predict that. I just know it's amazing, and it happens very shortly after you do that. But yeah, give subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe for updates, because you also get a notification when we go live, and you don't want to miss this stuff. This is all top shelf stuff. Owen, we are back next Monday, and we're going to continue our journey through the deep dive on the book that I'm waiting for you to interrupt me and tell me what it was.
We are going to talk about hazards from the Fantasy Age Basic Rulebook.
Ah, the Dukes of Hazzards.
Yeah, it's like a page of content, and it's incredibly important. And I think too many people just gloss over it. So we're going to roll up our sleeves and discuss it.
All right, friends. Owen's going to be taking you to school next ThursdAGE. Between then, we have Mutants and Masterminds Monday. We get to hang out with another map nerd, Crystal Frazier. I'm telling you, that woman loves a map. I mean, really. Yeah, absolutely. Again, Joe, absolutely a delight. Can't wait to have you back. Everybody, thanks for your great questions and your great commentary. Really appreciated all of your reflection over this. Over your experiences with Blue Rose over the past 15, 20, 17 years. What was it? Nearly 20, we'll say.
Yeah, nearly 20.
But for now, what we'll do is say goodbye, and we will see you all very soon. Goodbye, friends.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, folks.